Hello again, I am Blunty, and I caught this one from Kotaku of all places. Yes, they suck. Yes, I still pull their garbage into my news feeds because sometimes they accidentally do something interesting and worth looking at. Mostly they suck though. Agreed? Agreed. Thumbs, subs, spells, the whole Megillah. Anyway, in an article entitled Nintendo Switch Sports Players Are Already with the game's profanity filter, they go into detail about how inevitably a handful of players are desperately jumping through hoops to try crap that would be, I'm sure, horrifying and appalling to middle-class white suburban soccer mum types, I guess, because you'll see. So Nintendo always have a profanity filters in the games, even single-player ones, which, okay, sure, but in their online games, or at least what Nintendo generously call online games, there's a ton of restrictions you don't usually get in other places on other platforms, like their notoriously horrified terror at the thought of a simple system-wide and easy-to-use friend system, or rather more horrifyingly still, a voice chat. Just there. But of course, their newest online game, Nintendo Switch Sports, a spiritual successor to the one thing that made the Wii as perhaps undeservingly popular as it was. Feel free to defend in the comments if you're a Wii fanboy, but I stand by the fact that while the Wii was interesting technologically, it wasn't all that good at being a video game device, was it? But in Nintendo Switch Sports, there's a profanity filter as usual for player names and such, and as usual, when you challenge a gamer by putting a restriction in front of them, their natural instinct kicks in, their guttural drive, and every defiant neuron in their meat computer fires off all at once, determined to bend, sidestep, and break it in half. And so it was. While all the expected stuff is blocked, like and but all it takes to evade it at all is using a 3 instead of an E, or a 1 instead of an I or an L, or indeed any number of tricks that have been used for literally decades on the internet to sidestep such basic filters. Smushing two words together, slamming some garbage next to or on either end of the word or something like that. There's also a list of built-in words that Nintendo give players to use, approved words, and of course that too is rather exploitable. Kotaku list dad, mum, boy, girl, cat, dog, fan of, guardian, former, and so-called among examples that are ripe for nefarious use. The article also quotes some rando Redditor as saying, "I want this game to not be an absolute toxic cesspool with names that could be offensive. I hope the Switch Sports community stays wholesome." Which, hi, welcome to the internet and online gaming, first timer, enjoy your first day here. And wholesome in a competitive online game? Oh, you sweet summer child. Oh, how your naivete is envious and the brutal incoming reality is going to be crushing. Secondly, could be offensive. Now we come to the petty little trigger about word policing and where you draw the line in between will be offensive and could be offensive, and just how sensitive must we be when using words. Certainly some slurs and words used almost entirely in derogatory intent are off the table, but yeah, there's a slippery slope argument here that I'm just not going to dive into because we all know how that goes. So, what are these could-be offensive names squeaking by the filters, as told by Kotaku? Well, here's a fan of Mom, My Milkers. Oh no, a somewhat vague reference to the slightly off-putting slang term for large breasts. If I had pearls, I would clutch them. How about intense child eye porny? The word child and the word for content about adult fun times being so close together. Has someone alerted the priesthood? Wait, no, don't tell the priesthood. No. Intense stamina on MILFs. You see that Z replaces the S in MILFs, another slang term popularized by a movie that super duper doesn't hold up very well when it comes to things like, I don't know, young men respecting women as people rather than treating them as mobile preheated holes. You see, this user has rather cleverly suggested that their capacity for adult fun times with women who are, or at least look, over 30 and motherly but still sexy, is of an unusually vigorous nature. Won't someone think of the children? What if an 8-year-old saw this name and figured out it was a movie reference from 23 years ago? Their poor little minds would shatter into uncountable, permanently corrupted shards of existential doom. Doom. They would be forever corrupted as people. And that makes 2 videos in a row where I've used the word existential, by the way. I feel like that's kind of weird. So, Nintendo don't actually care. Just so you know, just so we're clear, they don't care. The word filter and other efforts like it, making voice chat, if it exists at all, super inconvenient and awkward and requiring a secondary device and all that kind of garbage that happens on the Switch, the lack of a fully functional friend system or messaging and all that sort of stuff that everybody else does just fine. All of that grew out of the PR scare when a tiny handful of stories came out about the gross pervs using the Nintendo DS chat app to potentially harass children. Picture chat. There were fears and stories where people were using the stylus and touchscreen to draw dirty pictures and send them to kids online. Except, while the stories were all about online predators using untraceable Wi-Fi in coffee shops, in reality, PictoChat was local only, for 15 users in a range of less than 30 meters. But Nintendo sure as heck didn't want a real situation to arrive where press like this got away from them and their family-friendly image was forever tarnished by creeps, and people were scared to let their kids have a Nintendo. So they became overprotective helicopter parents, and actual online stuff on Nintendo platforms going forward has been crippled ever since. Thanks, overzealous clickbaity media. But it's not actual concern from Nintendo, it's a PR concern for the brand, not their actual users. It's why stuff like this, the word filter, is always so half-assed. They do enough for a PR and legal defense if something truly horrible happens, maybe, someday, possibly, potentially, but they make no efforts to genuinely stop naughty words. Which on one hand is horribly cynical and on the other hand is pretty funny, actually. Also, is it just me, but I deeply wish there was like some video footage of Shuntaro Furukawa and Doug Bowser just going at it in Switch Sports and slagging each other off. How much would you pay? How much would you legitimately pay to see Doug Bowser call Shuntaro Furukawa a... Personally, in most online games, especially role-playing games, I'd prefer people use names that actually sound like names. They don't have to be real names, they just have to sound like real names. Just for immersion's sake in RPGs. It's always a bit jarring when you're on a dungeon run with someone called Titty McNipple-Licker, but in games like this, in games like sports, just go wild with the names, man. Who cares? No one's trying to imagine themselves as a professional athlete. You're not ruining anyone's immersion. You're not forever breaking the mind of a child by using a slightly odd reference to a maybe kind of dirty slang word for boobs or something. I mean, I would have called this story clickbait, except Nintendo themselves make it newsworthy by going to such half-assed efforts to censor. If they didn't bother at all, this wouldn't be a story. No one would be thinking about it. Just, oh, someone's using a dirty word in a video game. It happens all the time, everywhere. Just some people are just, that's their level of humor, that's their level of intelligence, that's their level of maturity. They think calling themselves King Cockwobbles is a right lark, and for some people it is, for some people it isn't, but it doesn't damage anyone's mind. It's not part of a nefarious scheme to predate on children. It's just some people using naughty words for their names in an online game. And again, it wouldn't be a story at all. It wouldn't be on Kotaku. It wouldn't have Reddit posts about it if it was any other game but a Nintendo game. Their efforts to stop this is what makes this newsworthy in the first place, and I find that amusing as well. So thanks for watching. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time, as thanks as always to the patrons. I appreciate each and every one of you.